Artist, this is your very first time at a Segue reading series. Make some noise to the virgins who are here. I am Reggie Kubico. I am your co-host for this reading this evening. I am also the executive director for A Gathering of the Tribes. And it is an honor for Gathering of the Tribes to collaborate with the Segue reading series. It's one of the oldest series in New York City, and I'm so delighted to have co-curated this evening with Drew Pissarra, who you'll hear from later. I want to give a shout out to Daniel, who's doing our tech, to Cecilia here at Arterspace and Segue. Shout out to Lonely Christopher and James Sherry, who we've been working for months, making sure that this event will happen. This is part 2 of an 8-part series. Every Saturday, all the way through November 23rd, we have incredible poets, Javier Cavazos, Pamela Booker, Cheryl Boyce Taylor, Thomas Vocalaro, Latasha and Nevada Diggs, Modesto Flaco Jimenez, Norman Fisher, the New York Neo-Futurists, G. Longco, Thaddeus Rakowski, and Waldman Noland, and Joey De Jesus. So, shout out to Tracy Dawn Williams from A Gathering of the Tribes. We could not do this without all of her technical, visual magic. Shout out to our board members, Catherine Arnaldi and Katie Duncan. All right, so can we give it up for our two features? Tonight you will be hearing from Nancy Mercado and Sloppi Chulo. I'm going to tell you a little bit about them, and then I'm going to introduce Nancy Mercado, and Drew Pissarra will introduce Sloppi Chulo. Nancy Mercado received the American Book Award for Lifetime Achievement. She's been featured at Lincoln Center, the Whitney Museum, and the University of Nantes and others. Mercado has authored 2 books, 7 theater plays, and has edited 3 anthologies. She is a Sagittarius. Sloppi Chulo is a Scorpio, actor, playwright, rapper, burlesque performer, and model who's been posing for drawing workshops and bachelorette parties for over a decade. There once was a muse, a collection of limericks and figurative art based on these Adventures in the Buff is his first book of poems. Nancy Mercado began her literary career in 1979. Some consider her to be part of the second wave of writers who constitute the Nuyorican literary movement. Of her work, Dr. Marilyn Kiss writes, "If the personal is political, then such verses as," I quote, "he was forgotten before he could be remembered by the heads of state he provided sugar for," written about Nancy Mercado's grandfather, Don Portalo, in the poem Director of the Sugarcane Field Workers, and Nancy's other well-known poem, Mila. Mila can speak of the turn of the century land reforms, of the blinded enthusiasm for a man called Marin, about her grandmother, Mila. These verses provide testimony to the type of poetic vision that Nancy wields. During the height of the COVID pandemic, in December of 2020, Nancy established and chaired the Migolabration Committee, an organizing vehicle created to pay tribute to the founder of the Nuyorican Poets Cafe, Miguel Algarin. And so, what I want to say on a personal level is that I emerged at the Nuyorican Poets Cafe in the wave of spoken word slam. Nancy has always been there as a champion for writers, BIPOC queer writers of color. She has been an activist. Her environmental work with ecopoetry.org is so impressive. What makes Nancy unique is that she is literary royalty. 2 things come to mind at AWP in Philadelphia in a crowded anthology reading. She took a camera, she swooped in like a fierce eagle and took selfies. And it is that kind of warmth and radiance that is in all of her poems. The poem that we published on Gathering of the Tribes, A Year to Forget the Trump Regime, really embodies her politically charged work with such authenticity and lyrical precision. Without any further ado, it gives me great honor to introduce the one and only Nancy Mercado. Let's give it up for Nancy Mercado. And can you all snap your fingers? So a little kumbaya thing. So if you hear something you like, you can snap your fingers. So this is not an academic kind of reading, little kumbaya. So without any further ado, so Nancy Mercado, I adore you.
You're so wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate that so much. Hi, guys. Okay, well, I'm going to read two pieces in honor of one, Drew, and his boyfriend, who made this beautiful fan for me. I'm so taken aback by that, you know. Such a wonderful gesture. I haven't read this poem in decades. But hopefully I'll be able to do it, you know, because I forgot about it. Okay, but anyway, this was the first poem I ever read in public, actually, at the Poetry Project. Pedro Pietri and Bob Holman forced me to get up on stage in the big hall, and just so happens that Allen Ginsberg and John Ashbery and Gregory Corso, they were like all in the audience. But I was like 22 or 2, what did I know, you know? So I didn't know anything. So now, this is called It Concerns the Madness. It concerns the madness of a man scribbling on newspapers. It concerns a little boy waving goodbye forever. It concerns your brother's voice on the telephone. It concerns the endless crying of a woman in the dark. It concerns a tragic love affair. It concerns the death of a salesman. It concerns a sunny day. It concerns a wicked barmaid. It concerns my ride into Jersey. It concerns your job interview last year. It concerns a confounded ring in my ear. It concerns the smell of booze on my breath. It concerns a bridge over polluted mess. It concerns the absence of boats. It concerns the cast of a play. It concerns no lunch today. It concerns the stare on your face. It concerns a question I might ask. It concerns T.S. Eliot. It concerns never being panicked. It concerns knowing everybody as they're being born. It concerns a little child in Pittsburgh. It concerns me. It concerns this poem. It concerns the last day of air. It concerns a black forest. It concerns my love for you. It concerns confusion. It concerns delusion. It concerns my friends. It concerns your anger. It concerns the derangement of a subject. It concerns the killing of an unknown soldier. It concerns nobody. It concerns everyone on the planet Jupiter. It concerns the annihilation of fear. It concerns your deliverance into someone else's arms. It concerns the phone ringing at 6:30 a.m. It concerns having to deal with a lot of bullshit. It concerns believing what you want. It concerns getting out of town. It concerns the children in a playground. It concerns ladies in waiting. It concerns Kathy. It concerns romancing a 16-year-old girl. It concerns you. It concerns Carmen. It concerns Nancy. It concerns metaphor. It concerns the Third World War. It concerns the unconcerned. It concerns mental patients. It concerns the month of June. It concerns a Christmas tree. It concerns asking permission. It concerns being in a well-known stranger's house. It concerns not opening the medicine cabinet. It concerns being outside for the first time. It concerns a weird phase. It concerns facing a firing squad. It concerns being incensed. It concerns nonsense. Thank you. This other piece that I have is in Tribes. Thank you, Reggie, for including it. This is newer, A Year to Forget, the Trump regime. Earth put a roaring halt to our empty, rabid existence, ceasing marathons of plastic productions, disintegrating worldwide stock markets, shuddering ubiquitous greed. Earth put a roaring halt to our multi-million-dollar games, sunk crude oil markets to asunder, stopped our tiddling trophy hunts, our eating bloody meats in hordes, our cruel trampling of the land. Put an end to our soiling of the skies, our tarnishing the homes where water beasts are born. In one thunderous clap, the planet hurled an instant standstill to our haywire, to our decapitation of mountaintops, our butchering of tree communities, to our murdering sprees of elephant and whales, tiger infants and elders, mothers and girls. Throughout passing days of sirens, our existence is halted, a new plague set into motion, our mass die-off launched. This other piece that I wrote, I had a few younger writers wanted us to write these poems about catcalls. And I told them, well, I don't get catcalled anymore, but I'll see what I could do, you know? So anyway, they gave me this assignment, you know? So they gave me this assignment, so I said, all right, let me see what I could do, you know? So I came up with this catcalls to my brain. No 1980s tight young ass to pounce on anymore. No smooth skin to assault anymore. No frightened little girl to follow down cold, shitty Lower East Side streets anymore. Nowadays, the boys catcall my intellect, corner me in conference rooms, universities, and restaurants. Oye, mami, ¿cuántos libros has leído? No sabes nada, bruta. Where did you graduate from, mommy? Your university degree means nada, nena. They attempt to inflict injuries with blank pages, to drown me out under piles of exclusions, to erase my existence, to whittle me down to a stub, nothing, silence. These days, my catcallers are the intelligentsia, postmodern jeering elitists, hyperbolic hipsters swooping in to take charge, our modern-day land grabbers, the white settlers of the information age, revolutionary revisionists. My catcalling boys come with females in tow these days, sold-out dames of trendiness, fast-talking fools, puking, memorized conceptual hullabaloos, living their own delusion. They are lost souls, existing in their own holograms of fame, convinced masses in the world know their name, believe their immortality. Don't my catcallers understand? They have yet to be born. Now, this is called Epilogue for the 21st Century. And this is something, you know, during the time that Trump was, he's still around, but, you know, when he was, you know, in the White House. Anyway. So you know who the demon is, you know. Something that Amiri Baraka taught me was the devil. You know, you got to fight against the devil. He was always on me on that, you know. So, you know, this guy is, you know who the demon is. Anyway. And the demon took possession of the nation, leading it by the hand in circles, engaging in topsy-turvy talk, weaving and unstitching gnarls of lies, dangling morsels of double talk and innuendos. And the nation jumped in an attempt to capture these morsels, if only for a second, to distill them into reality, to identify them as black or white. But the demon kept changing the meaning of all things, kept morphing his empty shell of broken bits and shiny shards of wickedness enshrined in glassy vials, and the nation contorting and heaving, drowned in a melee of arguments and weapons and hurricanes and earthquakes and wildfires and special reports on the evening news. While the demon's henchmen went out into the world and defiled the rivers, defiled the women, defiled the poor, defiled all the good creatures of the earth. They were hell-bent, maniacal in their derangement. They were the leaders of the free world. That's Trump in a nutshell. Okay, should I read? I'll read one more. This one's, I'll read one more. This, huh? You got more time. Okay, this one is a couple pages, so it might take up that time. So I'm glad you guys came out. This place was a little bit, I had to use a map to get here, but anyway. It's in an alleyway. I'm like, what's going on? Anyway. This was a poem that I wrote. I went the year after, we just went through 2 hurricanes, right? That devastated Florida. Well, those hurricanes are a result of climate crisis. I mean, and the climate crisis is a result of human beings. So, Maria hit Puerto Rico in 2017, and they're still trying to recover from that. That was Category 5 hurricane. And what happened was that it hit Puerto Rico, but it didn't keep going. It sat on top of the island, and I mean, I went the year after. So I of course I had to write about that. So this is called, I Come to See for Myself on the Anniversary of Hurricane Maria. And, I have my family, my parents' home there, so, and my family's there, so I had to, make sure that, things were pretty much okay. I fly in to see for myself, below blue tarps over the homes of my nation, like those silver blankets that cover the souls of Mayan and Arawak children locked inside cages on the US mainland I left behind. Arriving home, I enter a mass of confusion, plantain crops walloped in their places of birth, 5-foot-tall grass rebelliously advancing to heaven. My mother's lemon tree on her last leg hunched over, barely breathing. I witnessed it for myself, splintered wooden electrical poles held up by a neighbor's twine, trees arrowed through one another, now growing sideways, surviving. Not the palm trees, though. The palm trees chose victory or death, no in between half-hearted living, some growing new hair, others simply guillotined by Maria's detonation. I walk into the new growth of forest, detect the low lamenting sounds of the injured there, witness the anger etched into the undulating mountains surrounding me in the distance. I see the US cavalry arrive just in time, Cortez and Columbus repackaged into a 21st century nightmare, armies in metallic flying machines, using talking devices, exchanging messages in a foreign language through invisible airwaves. I see the cavalry arrive to help, themselves to the casinos they built, to hurl paper towels at the local mortician, to seize their opportunity to maximize on the extinction of the natives, keeping them in drawn-out darkness with no power to run hospitals, no shelter, with no water. I crossed the land from west to east, south to north, to see the revelers and the ruined for myself, to lend an ear to the survivors and to the dead, see shuttered schools for miles along the route. I run out of fingers on which to count them all. Part of a plan to ruin us, a small voice reminds me. I walk along the turquoise shores lined of amputated homes, crumbled fences, collapsed doorways into the sea. Inside, bits and pieces of families remain, their vestiges now across the Atlantic at the opposite end. Back in Ponce, I sit in my mother's rocking chair, watch my neighbors' hummingbirds who've arrived to visit her ruby coral bells. I think of my father's strength and his humility. He walked in silence, built a house to withstand a cyclonic catastrophe. I've seen for myself the natives are the majesty of this world. Together, they've cleared the paths, sawing, hewing through mammoth barriers of deceit and loathing, retrieved their own water, traversing the inundation of Washington's elite that vowed to drown them. They went about their lives by the light of a candle or an old wooden light pole they stitched back together with all the love on earth, maneuvering through a world of cadavers. Inside Maria's eye, amid the tantrums of the privileged, a nation held its ground, now raises its foundation of ancestral eminence anew. Is that good? Okay. All right, let me give you something I see of them. Something new that I've done more. Oh, well, I'm writing a lot about the environment, and, of course, how can I need to try to cultivate some positive thoughts, about that. But, it gets difficult sometimes, This was when Trump, everybody, I know I was up all night seeing what was going on, and everybody thought, okay, Hillary Clinton, is gonna make it, she's gonna win, and, then they announced Trump won. And I was like, I went outside of my body, and then I had to go to work the next day, which was even worse. And I don't know if you guys remember that day, if you were here, it was like dark, and it was like foggy. There's never fog here. You couldn't see across the street, It was fog. I said, this is all, part of the evilness that's just coming down on us, swooping down on us, So, and then I I couldn't sleep, so I went to work real early. So there's a little coffee shop across the street. So I went to a coffee shop and sat at the counter and proceeded to have a breakdown. And everybody was comforting me, and I was really crying, I said, you don't understand, we're in trouble. We're in big trouble, And this poem came out of that, and it's called, I got angry at the people, actually, more than I got angry at anything else. I got angry at the people. It's called Ushering in Armageddon on the Eve of Trump's election. We rapidly disappear all drinkable water, ramming engorged steel pipes like a rapist's penis into the earth, injecting its inside of vile poisons, lacerating its core, leaving warm, radiant grasslands stippled of dark, gray, gaseous machines, rusting, oozing mucus onto the countryside, choking vaporous clouds rising from rivers, waterways cloaked with upended salmon, beaver, birds, assorted insects we'd yet to encounter. Mass extinctions of other life forms run amok before us, because of us. We indulge in gluttony zealots for crude oil, nuclear fuel, and intangible futures. We indulge in greed, craze for imbecilic video games, prime time and commercial ads, making ourselves rich, making others rich, and our minds poor. We coddle our narcissism, the idea that we're invincible, all-knowing, masters of the universe, superior to all life forms, yet ignorant of countless creatures inhabiting black depths at the bottom of our own planet's seas. We sentence ourselves to wrath, placing madmen at the helm of a nuclear empire. We fornicate with money and palm oil lovers, torching vast swaths of Earth's forests, decimating acres at whim. We sentence ourselves to deception, choosing fanciful illusions. We are Leviathan stars on a global stage, existing only inside the flat screens of our cracked skulls. We sentence ourselves to sloth, lethargically sitting by, witnessing the implosion of even our own families, never lifting a finger, never touching our carcasses, never taking our carcasses out of cushy, cheap sofas bought at Walmart on Veterans Day sales. We splatter everything over of syrupy affirmations that disguise our crimes, that mask our cataclysms, our inertia, our self-inflicted Armageddon, like a junkie shooting up that last dose of bad endings, a rehashed nightmare. How utterly foolish we are. I get upset. That's why sometimes I lose sight of the words, but I get angry, So, what are we doing? We live in such a beautiful place. The earth is so gorgeous, and what are we doing, So I'll end with this poem. This is from the book, and I didn't bring books because they're in the closet, and I can't move the armoire to get to them, and it's just, I gotta get somebody to get into the apartment. So I'm a mess. Anyway, this is for Jimi Hendrix. I'll leave on a good note. An idle instrument induces such sorrow, a longing to hear the beat of a chord, the only time one could weep at the sound of the national anthem. Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Segue, and Reggie, Drew, everyone. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Nancy Mercado, everyone. You have been Nancy Mercado in true Sagittarius fashion. Totally Nancy Mercado. Thank you. Next up, the beauty of curating this series is that I get to work with Tribes and with Drew and with Tracy, bringing authors, poets who have enriched Gathering of the Tribes. And if you don't know Tribes, tribes.org is the website, and you'd want to check out the poems that we have published of our featured readers. Gathering of the Tribes started in 1991 by a professor, Steve Cannon, and Steve mentored so many writers, and his home became the place for artists and writers to philosophize and rock on. And we are continuing the tradition. What I wanted to say is that I left New York in 2006, and working with Drew, I'm able to be inspired by writers that I have not met. And so to tell you more about our feature, Sloppi Chulo, who's the author of There Once Was a Muse, I'm going to bring up the author of Fassbender, his movies, my poems. Let's give a big warm round of applause for poet, playwright Drew Pissarra, y'all.
So just to echo Reggie's sentiment, really one of the pleasures of this series has been being introduced to poets I wasn't familiar with before and getting to spend time with their work. And Nancy's work I just thought was so amazing that my boyfriend is an artist, and he's actually like an amazing origami artist. And I was inspired to force him to create a piece of art inspired by one of her poems. And then I was like, well, you can't just give something to one of the poets and not the other one. So I was like, well, what am I going to give Sloppi Chulo? And I was like, oh, well, my first idea was this book has beautiful art of Sloppi Chulo in flagrante, I think that's the expression. And I was like, I'll get my boyfriend to do a nude of me and give that. And then I was like, I don't know if that's a good way of introducing myself. And then I thought, oh, I'll get my boyfriend to do a nude of Sloppi based on his work. And I was uncomfortable asking my boyfriend to do a nude of somebody else. So then I went online and I found a photo of him, and I tweaked the hell out of it and made these are my little cue cards. So Sloppi, you can have these when I'm done. So how did I discover Sloppi Chulo? I worked at the Bureau of General Services Queer Division, which is the bookstore at the Gay Community Center, for 2 years. And I always have like a goal in terms of how many books I'm going to read. And then I always get behind. And I was like, what do we have that's short, right? Like, where's a book that's really short? And this is a very short book. And after I read it, I loved this book so much. And then I started pushing it on people when they came into the store. And I didn't care if they liked poetry or not, because the poems in here are limericks, and I feel like limericks are accessible to everybody. And they're exquisitely executed limericks too, I'll add. And if you don't like poetry, it has pictures. So I thought that was an easy sell. And then, yeah, that helps. And then, so you may be asking, who is Sloppi Chulo? So I'm going to say in response, who is Elena Ferrante? Who is Bell Hooks? Who is George Orwell? Who is Iceberg Slim? Who is George Eliot? Who is Lewis Carroll? Who is Lemony Snicket? And who is Mark Twain? So those are all nom de plumes. What's important is the work. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, one of the reasons I love this book so much is I am a huge advocate of form in poetry. I love practicing or writing poetry that's in form. I've written a couple of books inspired by the sonnet. I'm going to be teaching a workshop about the villanelle. And when I read this book, I was like, man, the limerick does not get its due. And I firmly believe that if sonnet is the form for love, the limerick is the form for lust. And that's just as important. And then I was, in preparation for today, I was researching the limerick, and I saw there's a lot of really famous writers who have worked in the form: Edward Lear, Rudyard Kipling, Oliver Wendell Holmes. This one I wanted to share is by Swinburne. It's a very good limerick. There was a young lady of Norway who hung by her toes in a doorway. She said to her beau, "Just look at me, Joe. I think I've discovered one more way." So, and then the last thing I want to share before we bring Sloppi up here, I'm so excited you're here, was I did write a limerick for Sloppi. So, there once was a poet named Sloppi. The limerick was his jalopy. He rode those rhymes hard, that bawdiest bard, and came up with exquisite copy. Come on up, Sloppi Chulo.
Hey, homies. Drew, thank you so much for that. That was incredibly beautiful. It made me laugh. It's really crazy for me to be sharing the stage with Nancy Mercado. That's like, wow, yo, incredible honor. Shouts to Segue and Tribes for bringing me in. Appreciate you, Reggie and Drew. So a little bit of background on this project. So I'm a rapper. I never really identified as a poet. But hip hop's poetry, right? Goddamn. But what I was really always obsessed with was rhymes and rhyming. And I feel like everybody is. Because motherfuckers be like mispronouncing orangutan to make it rhyme. Orangutan. Right? People love rhymes, So, and I was, that's always been like just a passion of mine for whatever reason. I loved rhyming poetry, and the limerick in particular, it always spoke to me. It was, it's like short and tidy, and it's super satisfying. And also, the naughtiness, it's just allowed. It's like, it's like a body form. It's like Irish pubs, oral, tradition shit. Anyway, it's the pandemic. And I'm home. I got my 3-year-old, me and my wife and my 3-year-old, we're trapped. And I'm bored to fucking tears. And I randomly find this anthology of limericks, and I don't know whose it was. I don't know if it was from her college years or my college years or one of our parents left, But I just like crack open this limerick anthology, and there's like several thousand limericks in there. And I'm just like thumbing through them, reading some, trying to remember some of the good ones. And I just caught it. I caught the bug. And so I started writing limericks that June. It was Pride. It was Pride 2020. Or like it was approaching Pride, and I was like, yo, I want to do some shit for Instagram. I want to do like a naughty daily, whatever the fuck, but like with a limerick, And I got fucking hooked. So at the beginning, right, I'm writing these poems about my own like dick, right, like that, because that's what I was up to during the pandemic, right? Like I'm on OnlyFans selling videos and photos of me like naked, like erotic shit, clown shit, right? I'm just wild, and I have like only, and that's like the only thing that's keeping me feeling like an adult, like a not kid adult. I've been with my 3-year-old all day, and then I put him down and for bed, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go to the basement and film some weird shit, like, right? What I mean? Like, that's like, this is gonna remind me of like, what it was like out there, before we couldn't leave. So anyway, so here are some of the first ones that I wrote. There once was a stripper named Chulo, who really loved letting the jewels show. He'd play his skin flute with an audience to boot, perpetually seeking a new low. Right. Sloppi was hung like a Pegasus. His cock was a sturdy, tall edifice. The monster would flop, and he'd watch their jaws drop and eyes widen, aroused and incredulous. There once was a muse most amusing, who was prone to erections while snoozing. The trouble with that was he tended to nap out in public, the place of his choosing. There was a real pervert named Gabe, who starred in his own lewd parade. And when he unzipped and his loyal fans tipped, there he goes, serving dick, serving trade. An orphan in search of endorphins, wound up with testicular torsion. All stretched out and frayed, he was basically spayed. Well, at least nothing's wrong with his foreskin. His sexual history was checkered. He held several jerking off records. Rather than romance, he'd lather his own hands and battered his poor abused pecker. Said a tuckered out cock to his owner, listen, slugger, forget a strong boner. Keep stretching me out, and I haven't a doubt that you'll need to line up organ donors. So I'm gonna tell you guys about a drawing that was made of me during this era. This was like Memorial Day, but like trapped Memorial Day. And I'm like, all right, yo, I gotta do something fun for like OnlyFans, right? Like, so I was like, let me put my dick in this hot dog bun and like, put some ketchup and mustard on that shit. And like, it'll be like just like some silly, like, yeah, happy Memorial Day, motherfuckers, perverts, whoever you are, like, and trapped. And we didn't have mustard. we didn't have mustard in the crib. And I was like, fuck! I was like so fucking tight. I was like, we really fucking need the mustard, yo. Like, cause I tried it with the ketchup and it just looked like an injury. You know what I mean? Like it was not giving like Memorial Day fun. Like it was like, oh, the fuck happened to that dude? I was like, I really need the mustard, like color contrast wise, it just signals, it just brings it home. And I was like, do I go to this bodega right now and get mustard and like risk my family's life? No, right? Like that's where we're like, you know what I mean? Like we trying to leave the crib like once or twice a week and shit. Like I can't do it. I can't justify that purchase. So I was like, so I just like did a ketchup. And then I like did a sad like caption. And then anyway, at this time, a friend of mine, a really amazing artist named Eric Lesh. Eric is drawing a sexy food series. I see my boy Milo Pony, who's a fellow model and burlesquer. Milo Pony was one. There's like cakes and cupcakes, and he's serving cake and whatever. It was a very sexy drink. I was like, oh, the holler at Eric. I was like, bro, like, what'd you think about a hot dog? About like a memorial, hot dog thing? He was like, yeah, send it. I was like, okay, bro, okay, but can you please add the mustard to the drawing? Like, can you put mustard in the drawing? He was like, of course, man, I'll put mustard in the drawing. So he drew that thing, and then I wrote a limerick to accompany it. So that drawing is in that book. If you want to check the book out afterwards, there's like really some fun, really weird, amazing drawings from like all of the modeling I've done in the different spaces. Anyway, there was a nude model named Sloppi, whose hot dog was lengthy and floppy. His favorite deed was casting his seed, and I ain't talking chia or poppy. So, anyway, so I'm writing these limericks, and they're just like, almost all of them are about jerking off, right? At least the first like 30, 40 I did, like they were all about jerking off. And I'm looking for synonyms and shit, right? Like I'm out here, like I need to find new ways to describe this thing. And meanwhile, I'm posting drawings all the time on Instagram, and like they've gotten crazy. I used to do like eggplant week, and it's like a week of like flaccid dicks, and but now I'm doing eggplant month, eggplant year, and I'm jerking off, and I was wilding. We're trapped. I was just, I was expressing myself. And a very clever follower of mine, I always love his comments. He writes something about like onanism on one of my, on one of these drawings that I had posted. And I was like, onanism, oh my God, I forgot about that word. I look it up to make sure, and I was like, all right, it's just masturbating. So I was like, all right, so so here's the next poem. Completely addicted to onanism. So that's the other thing, is like, I'm like, what the fuck rhymes with onanism, right? You know what I mean? If you're gonna do the whole thing, it's just like, all right, here it is. Completely addicted to onanism. He lived in his own little boner prison. And in his confinement, he wondered where time went as months became years in his home of jism. There once was a turtle-necked slut who had heard that to bust the best nut, 'twas no better adornment than the skin he was born with. Thank God his folks left him uncut. So it's spring 2020, right? And I don't know if y'all remember this, if the people who are in New York here, or I don't know if like there was a particular, I don't know how big this news was for non-perverts. Like, you know what I mean? Like in my Instagram circles, like this was like memed. They memed the fuck out of this thing. It was when like Fauci was like, basically he was like, please use a glory hole, like save a life. Like dead ass, you know what I mean? They're like, put up a barrier maybe. Like you guys can still be intimate, but like keep your faces like the fuck away from each other. So, the glory hole thing, again, at least in my corner of the internet, in my corner of the internet, there were glory hole jokes for a while. But it was like while we were also like watching the death count be crazy high and shit. And you know what I mean? It was like a very like unique cocktail of like gallows humor and like horniness and like just grief and fear and shit, So a lot of the next sort of ones that I started cooking were like sort of pandemic-y. And trying to like explore some of those weird conflicts. So anyway, the CDC's counsel seemed stupid, but then who was he to dispute it? with his pole and his balls through a hole in the wall for a Fauci-safe discharge of fluids. There lived a skin peddler named Slops, whose name and dick game were just tops. For a modest gratuity, you could ogle his nudity on the finest of internet shops. Shops is spelled with 2 P's and an E. Sloppi was just such a rube. He would film himself trimming his pubes. These dubious annals lived on in a channel on RedTube with very few views. Sloppi had skills undeniable. He would oft monetize being pliable. With a fist in his ass, playing Twister for cash, spraying clients with spunk and varietals. There once was a fluffer on set who was there because of student loan debt. He would say, "If you please, I have 2 Yale degrees." But the truth was, he loved getting wet. There once was a fellow most sordid, whose account kept on getting reported. But he always returned, Instagram never learned. Dicks like his and their jizz can't be thwarted. He knew that his life was profane, but he loved being brazen and vain. And he scrolled through his mentions, obsessed with attention. His pubis was public domain. So I'm gonna tell you about a drawing. There's a drawing of me in that book, and there's a big bowl of milk with like Fruit Loops all up in it, and then I'm Fruit Loop sized, basically, right? It's me naked on a spoon that's about to get eaten, and I've got my dick in a Fruit Loop, kind of like a cock ring situation, but like not as snug as a cock ring, you know, more like a flotation device. And I'm jerking off into the Fruit Loop. And so this was from a custom that I did on OnlyFans, where one of my subscribers asked me to come on some baked goods. And he didn't care what kind, breakfast, baked goods, he didn't care. It was a muffin, you know, cereal, right? I was like, all right, cereal, I got cereal. So he wanted me to nut into the cereal bowls, you know, so I staged it real nice, and I had the Cheerios. And so the artist, my friend Emily Kirshner, she's also known as the Frankenstein fairy. She, they were just drab Cheerios, but she made them Fruit Loops, which was a good call visually. But in the real video, it's Cheerios. And so I I nut into the Cheerios, and I poured the milk, and then I turned the camera around, and I ate the Cheerios. And I was like, breakfast, the most important meal of the day. So that was the video, and it was like legendary. It was legendary. But I sent it to him, and he fucking loved it. I was like, bro, I need to send this with the whole team, I think. You know, so it was like, cool, I know you purchased this custom, but like, you know, I think this is the one. And he was like, please share it, you know. So that was like, you know, one of my iconic like pandemic masterpieces. Set your alarm or else Siri will. They paid for genetic material. So get out the cam and tug on your yam. Today's custom vid, milk the cereal. The year was a wild disappointment. The proverbial fly in the ointment. Down on his luck, he'd enjoyed a great fuck pre-pandemic and hadn't been boinked since. As he sat there half sad, half euphoric, and pondered his hookups historic, some of them rotten and quite misbegotten. Well, should he just skull fuck poor Yorick? Oh, I should have told y'all about the drawing first. I got a skull in my hand for that one. I'm pondering the skull, you know. So yeah, that Yorick would have made a little bit more sense. Feeling blue, he sat down, wrote a ballad, unsure if his sadness was valid. His cock was adored, but his tocks were ignored. Can a guy get a little tossed salad? There once was a man with a plan. It entailed OnlyFans and his hand. Live theater was gone. COVID birthed a new dawn. It was time to jerk off on demand. When OnlyFans ruined the pact and decided to clean up its act, Sloppi stayed focused because nothing was hopeless. His pride and his cock still intact. So then I move into like I continued down the rabbit hole of, you know, just limerick addiction, but all it's like these sexual fantasy, you know, imagination and like exploring different kinks on the page that I actually hadn't done in real life, you know. So just like this, you know, sort of like just like kind of like a fantasy scape almost, you know, for sort of like lust and queer sex in particular, as like a mostly straight boy, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it was like a fun like sort of like exploration, again, sort of like just in my own space, in my own head. He was dangerous, well hung, and pretty. Cock worship was done by committee. They sniffed on his garments and fucking apartment. They gave him the key to the city. So I have an artist friend named Court Watson, who was doing this series at the time of all these naked men posing in like these sexy poses, and he's putting them in front of the subway map. So with the subway map as the background, you see the naked drawing, and he put me in, and I was in front of Queens, like just like me, like me, Queens in the background, and he made my junk flopping, ass humongous, right? Like I did not have that ass. That's aspirational. That's ass goals. He gave me this enormous ass, and I was like, damn, I gotta earn that. I gotta do some squats or some shit, Court. Like that ass is, that is not my ass. It's amazing. That's great drawing, beautiful drawing, very sexy. And I was like, oh, I gotta write something to accompany this subway map joint. He got some great head in Gowanus. That dick kept the Chelsea boys honest. He knew out in Bushwick he'd always find tush quick, but Queens had the ass that was promised. Always in search of a Hummer, he would come thick and sticky like summer. You know the type, he would clean out your pipes. All the bottoms nicknamed him the plumber. His cock was a national monument, a source of irrational confidence. He sprayed far and wide, leaving all satisfied as he rationed out splashes of condiments. Yeah, that should have been paired with the hot dog joint. I fucked that up. There was a young man with a fetish. Around greens, he would get quite coquettish. He'd tease and he'd flirt, but when push came to squirt, he'd insert and fuck sick heads of lettuce. His favorite dom got the call. He paid her to stomp on his balls. His chosen colonic, Manolo Blahniks, with heels that were 6 inches tall. I only know what Manolo Blahniks are from Sex and the City. When the thief like takes his shoes and he recognizes him, and I was like, I don't know, yo. I don't think he would have recognized the heels, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just out of the loop. But that's how, anyway. As he idly gave head to a vegetable and fingered his seminal vesicle, his junk was magnetic, the whole world could get it. Henceforth, he was heteroflexible. They told him to really seduce papaya or pineapple juice, but his lovers were spitters. His nut was still bitter. It was time to put nutmeg to use. The cream sauce had what? Come again, who? Knew it was that type of venue. A slip of the thumb had made cumin become a dish from a way different menu. This porn star was fully a snob, and he'd gotten quite sick of his job. Sex all day was a bore. He retired from the chore, much to the chagrin of his knob. He just hated closing his legs. It was the best view of the eggs. But offer him oral and you'd get a quarrel. He wanted one thing, to get pegged. Hey, boo, what's your favorite position? Oh, same, no competition. Asleep on my back with my poor bloated sack fully primed for nocturnal emission. Lived a man with an oral fixation who just adored oral dictation. His throat would expand, he was missing a gland. Just imagine the horror implications. There at Crotch Watchers Anonymous, I'm just going to say that one again. That's so fun. There at Crotch Watchers Anonymous, he shared bawdy tales of great wantonness. And then at the concert, he called up his sponsor to help with some big cock reconnaissance. To tell you the truth, he was utter filth. His goal was quite simply to fuck a dilf. And when he set goals, all his holes wound up whole, with his mouth and his ass full of buttermilk. I'm gonna tell y'all about a drawing. The artist's name is Ramsey Scott, I think, I'm pretty sure. I don't know him that well, but he's really lovely, smart dude. I was posing with doable guys. Kyle Anderson brought me in to pose. We're at Maison 10, and I'm like wearing a little robe and shit. I did a pose that was like, I'm like on this couch, and I'm sort of like perched, something like that. but you know, everyone's at that orientation. Like nobody's there. Nobody was drawing me from there. But Ramsey like imagined it from there, right? Like he was out there and shit. There weren't chairs over there, you know. But he drew the 90 degrees away view. But then rather than put me in the couch, just a boring old couch that I was on, he put me in an alleyway, and I'm wearing boots and like a torn like a tight white tank top, and I'm like on a cardboard. I'm on some flattened cardboard. And it's like it's an Amazon Prime box. You see it's a great touch. And there's like garbage bags all around me and shit. It's like this filthy fucking scene. I'm completely naked except for the boots and the shirt, and my jeans are like around my ankles. And then you see this angle. and then you see the back of a dressed man, and all you see is like the bottom of his legs to the top of his legs to his feet, and he's still clothed. But you see like one leg in the view, and like somebody's about to fuck me in this alley, right? Like that's the angle. That's the angle of it. It's like this dude is like, you know, like pulling up. Right? It's really amazing. Super like evocative, fucking, you know, imaginative drawing. And I put it up on Instagram. I mean, mind you, I'm like in month 3 or 4 at this point of like putting up dick drawing after dick drawing after dick drawing for fucking months. Mostly hard, mostly like I'm currently jerking off in them, right? And none of them get taken down. None of them. I'm not using hashtags and shit. I've got my people that, you know, none of them get reported. I put up this drawing and it got reported. I got fucking like they were like threatening to kick me off Instagram and shit. Like just like some ill bottom shaming shit, honestly. Like really, you know, like that was more sort of you know, not cool or something, you know what I mean? Like the homophobia, I don't know what it was, but you know, that one was like, they came for that one. It's so fucking great. So check that book out, even if you don't buy it, and fucking thumb through it and find that drawing. It's bananas. He couldn't have told you the tally. They came for his peaks and his valleys. This man was a giver who same day delivered and served up prime ass in the alley. So then I started moving into like random other parts of my imagination, or like historical figures, or like fucking, you know, Greek myths, right? Like I started wilding, biblical shit, you know. So here are a few of those. There once was a gorgeous Norse god who was hung like he had a horse bod, but he struggled to read. Silent E's weren't his speed, and his whole life pronounced it Morse cod. There was a musician named Lando, and Lando always went commando. He strummed with his phallus, built up quite a callus. Don't believe me? Go sniff his banjo. There was an old gay Irish thruple. One was lean, one was thick, one was supple. John dicked Finn Patrick, Fat Patrick was ass-licked, Thin Patrick with poop on his knuckles. So I'll take this moment to just shout my wife out real quick. There are not too many, but like a sincere one. There are not too many sort of like mostly straight women out there who are like down for their husbands to like go like get like, you know, his dick sucked and like paid for it and shit, you know, or whatever. But on top of that, like for 4 months straight, you know, all day long, I'm forcing her to workshop limericks with me about these escapades, right? And she's just like, yo, like, I can't. And I'm like, nah, Boots, I need to find, you know, the perfect, you know, I need you to be my editor. And I just, you know, I just wore her down, you know, but she was a sort of semi-consensual limerick book editor. And you know, but then, right, like, you know, if you can't beat them, join them. She wound up writing a couple. And I don't even know if she remembers, because she's had another kid since then, and fucking more important things have happened. But here's a Rachel original. Lived a miser named Scrooge Ebenezer, who was cold as a luge in the freezer, till his friend Christmas past licked and tickled his ass. That's one way to get splooged from a geezer. So she's casually just like also like very good at fucking writing filthy limericks. It's just like popped in and was like, yeah, got you. I could do this shit. lived a carpenter named Jesus Christ. Boy, oh boy, could this man squeeze it right. He would pull up a seat and wash all these hoes' feet, then come home and just beat it all night. A young nyctophobe named name of Mark was cripplingly scared of the dark, so he always swiped right. Who needs a nightlight when you're cruising for dick in the park? He tried to avoid it but tripped. He sailed through the air and Lloyd flipped, but Daddy's dick caught him, as sure as fall's autumn. They call that a Freudian slip. Those cherries looked sweet, hot, and heavy. He eyed them with lust. What a bevy. He knew they'd feel good just caressing his wood. Ah, don't you knock, Eugene Levy? A size queen out in Darjeeling frequently seemed to be kneeling. To deal with this matter, he bought a tall ladder so he could suck cock on the ceiling. Here's one that's just a bit ribbled. Jose loved a good dick to nibble. Hirsute or clean-shaven, he loved riboflavin, which oft down his chin dripped and dribbled. A randy old rich dame named Imogene would espy passersby and yell, "Gimme peen!" No surprise that her days would oft end the same way, riding dick in the back of her limousine. Eventually, I reached there was I'm like 200 limericks in, and they're all like that, and I was like, all right, I was spent, so we did this thing, right? I've neglected to mention how the book even came into existence. So Kyle Anderson, who's a great artist in his own right, and also curates or facilitates the Doable Guys workshop. You heard that right. It's called Doable Guys. And it's a really sexy, dope weekly thing, and there's a lot of amazing artists that draw there. And I had just posed there, like virtually, and Kyle and I are in touch, and he'd been like reading the silly limericks that I was posting on Instagram, and he hits me up and he was like, "Bro, when are we making a book?" And I was like, "When are we making a book?" So it was just like on the strength of his vision and experience, like doing their annual like little chapbooks, or like so he had this sort of knowledge, and anyway, so we made this really beautiful book, sort of combining all of these drawings that have been made of me over the years with these like silly, like narcissistic poems. So yeah, I think it came out really well. It's a really beautiful project, and so I'm super grateful to Kyle for that. So anyway, I switched it up. It was later in the pandemic. We were less trapped. I'm still with my 3-year-old all day, and we go in on ocean life. In all day long. That is all the fuck we are doing, is ocean life. Books and drawings and conversations. And so then I started writing these poems about ocean life. And they were like, for him, kind of, except like none of them had references that they were like adult things. You know what I mean? It's like, my wife, she jokingly like made a pitch for it, as if we were writing a query letter or something for this book that didn't exist. And it was, Go the Fuck to Sleep meets Shel Silverstein and Finding Nemo in Gabriel Diego Hernandez's new book of irreverent undersea poems. Read them with your child if you dare. Right, so it's like, that's what, So I'm gonna read just a couple of those, because that's where I've been at lately. That's, this is, I haven't written a limerick in a while, but I've been sort of steeping in marine life poetry. This one is called August at the Pub. A shark in the dark when you've wandered too far and you're lost, like forgetting you parked over on Hart Street. You can't find your car key and there's no solace, not even in that sweet starfish that's so sparkly. This macabre scene is scored by a moody Mozart suite, and you're wondering if bull sharks prefer white or dark meat. And if tonight you will serve up a juicy and tart treat, human au poivre with a garnish of parsley, to a vicious carnivore who's hangry and thirsty. Barkeep, please change the channel. My husband is terrified of Shark Week. I got two more for you. This one's called Fly, Fly Away. High, high above, like the wings of a fish. Fly, fly away, little one. Glide swift and sleek with your silver physique. Fend hunters off with your sharp, pointy fins. Fly, fly away, little one. In clear blue skies or in stormy weather, with big sweet eyes and downy gills. Fly with your gaze tilted up at the sun. Fly, fly away, little one. Fly, little fish, little flying fish. Neither frying pan nor spicy dish await you today, little fish, little fish. Make a wish, just one wish, that you'll still exist. May your days be sunlit and never abyssed. Steer clear of snafus and avoid mishigas. Make sure you're not made into a fish sauce. Swim like the wind, fly like a boss, for a rolling stone gathers no algae. Fly, fly away, little one. And then this one is called Aparna, which is the one that Tribes put up on their website, which is super, super cool to see that. I appreciate that. Aparna. There's a narwhal on my bar crawl, and let me warn y'all, she's playing hardball. Her name's Aparna. I said Aparna. Gosh darna. Aparna the narwhal. Great assonance. But let me ask you this. I beg your pardon, miss, but let me posit this. I'm not positive, and I say this with no confidence, but are there even narwhals from the subcontinent? She said, you landlubber. I'm in town visiting my brother, and by the way, I'm from Canada. Don't judge a book by its cover. Now, you've been warned. By 2 a.m, these tipsy yuppies thought Aparna was a unicorn. Nursing a third beer, I blurted out, a narwhal's tusk is queer. You look like a North Atlantic musketeer. Aparna rolled her eyes. I offered her a cheers. She reached for a drink, forgetting all about her 10-foot spear. She accidentally knocked over 6 pictures in the TV. Is that a narwhal in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me?
Everyone, let's give it up for Sloppi Chulo. Sloppi Chulo is available for bar mitzvahs and baptisms. Could we please welcome back to the stage photo opportunity, Nancy Mercado, everyone. Nancy Mercado to the stage. Drew Pissarra, photo op. I swear to you, if you have listened to Nancy Mercado and Sloppi Chulo, that is all there is of poetry, really. It is Nancy Mercado and Sloppi Chulo. Give yourself a big, big warm round of applause.